So in the previous segment, I talked about the importance of frustrating the desires of the masses and then installing in them um, associations so that they think they will experience satisfaction through buying something, generally speaking. So whereas our biology is satisfied through um, anything from sexual pleasure to family. Um, what else? Just learning. A lot of people find learning to be fun and you know, um, fulfilling. Um, in contrast to that, we are programmed to think, well, if I want to be happy, then I need to buy a red t-shirt or whatever it may be, a red hat or a green hat or whatever it is. So I'm trying to make these examples super silly, but we're going to get into diamond rings and the specifics of that. So what I referenced in the previous segment is the explicit methodology of the entire field of public relations to create associations between things that are not connected. In the early 20th century, Edward Bernays trailblazed that field of public relations by applying the insights made by his uncle, Sigmund Freud. Public relations, coupled with the technology of mass media to really distribute messages very quickly to huge numbers of people, that made governing the masses far more efficient so they could influence public opinion. But it also created new profitability for businesses. Newspapers obviously had advertising, but with radio and TV and then movies, the ability to influence public perception was huge. You may be aware of newsreels that would be displayed before movies. I don't know what years this was, say the 1930s. There would be propaganda segments that would be displayed before feature presentations at a movie theater. So people would go to the movie theater to watch, Casablanca or whatever, I don't know, Gone with the Wind, The Wizard of Oz. They would go to watch whatever movie, and prior to the movie, there would be shown indoctrination programming. And it was news, but it was it was news that was produced by the Army, basically, the U.S. Army. This isn't the case of the U.S. I'm sure in other countries there were similar variations. So two famous successes in the realm of commercial advertising for Edward Bernays were first the use. First, I didn't put this in the online written article, but first, he was key in getting the U.S. public to be complacent or what do you call it, supportive of U.S. invasion of Europe in the 19 teens with World War I. So there was all this propaganda about the enemy and what they had been doing and how horrible they were and how we needed to go and we needed to take all our young men and borrow lots of money to build lots of equipment and go and fight a war. Edward Bernays was key at creating the press releases, generally complete fiction, but presented as news, presented as fact. So these were distributed throughout the U.S., throughout lots of newspapers, and public opinion went from being like, well, why should we be involved in Europe? What does it have to do with us? To at least acceptance of the invasion. Generally people were like, okay, that's going to happen. And in a lot of cases, people were like, yeah, that was really good that we did that, or I really hope we do that soon. So that was his first thing. But then when he had the success with that, commercial businesses got really interested. Lucky Strike was the name of the cigarette company, and they hired him to penetrate the other half of the market in the U.S. for cigarette use. Men were using cigarettes, but women weren't. Edward Bernays created a whole series of publicity stunts to get women to associate smoking cigarettes with freedom and liberty and power and happiness, basically. So they started to smoke cigarettes. He also, I know with Lucky Strike, he also did things like he analyzed their packaging and he said, you know what, you guys can't use that color and that, the polka. I think he ended up doing it with like lime green polka dots were on their packaging because, like, look, if you want to appeal to women, you can't use that color and those kind of harsh, and they did. All right. So what I wanted to talk to him about, what I wanted to talk more about was Ed Bernay's success with the diamond jewelry industry. So clarity about the success of the diamond industry. Here are the quick details. Diamonds are, and you can research this further. I found all this online. There's movies about it, lots of documents. The book Propaganda, written by Edward Bernays, is his own book that he wrote, detailing everything that I'm telling you. It's actually only 60 or 80 pages or something. It's not really long. It's free. Quite intriguing. He talks about public schools, medicine influencing the public's perception about health. So there can be this general terror of the demons that are going to possess you. He didn't write it that explicitly. That's my version. But I love this, that the general public is terrified of immune system activity and some medical diagnosis. Like, that's just this general paranoia. Oh my God, you got cancer? Oh, they're like more concerned about that than like a car crash or something. Like, I mean, and not in a way that's powerful where they're taking actions to promote their health. It's just this kind of general sense of, oh, you better have that checked, and if you get it, then you need chemo. That's an incredibly lucrative business model. So anyway, diamonds. They're a relatively common substance, which even can be synthetically made now. The De Beers cartel bought up every diamond mine to monopolize supply so that they could control the inventory of diamonds available to the public for purchase. Then, Edward Bernays created publicity deceptions to exploit the repressed public desire for sex and security. He created 90-minute commercials for diamond rings called movies. The scripts were written around a climactic scene in which the handsome and heroic leading man offered the beautiful leading actress a diamond ring. And she accepted, and they kissed, and then they lived happily ever after. Roll credits, play the violin, tear-jerking music. She swoons, she says yes, right, then they live happily ever. What I just said. However, it's all a pretense. Those are actors. That's not a real. They didn't really get married. Those actors, they were faking it. They're pretending for a camera and for a paycheck. The whole thing was constructed, and people get really emotionally, triggered. They watch these movies, and they're like, wow, that was awesome. A week later, in the newspaper is an ad for a diamond ring, or maybe on a TV commercial or a radio show. Diamonds are a girl's best friend. Oh, yeah, I saw that movie. And did you see how Kate Hathaway, or I don't know, Faye Dunaway, Clark Gable said this, and then oh man, that was great. I hope that when I ask my girlfriend to be my fiance, to be my wife, that she's going to do that too. Maybe I'll even take her to see that movie, and then after the movie, I'll open up the little box, and I think it's going to be very, very satisfying to my interests. So, Edward Bernays developed product placement, publicity stunts in the modern sense, public relations as an industry, public relations. He developed all that through applying the insights of his uncle Sigmund Freud, and to great success for government propaganda to get the U.S. into World War I with a lot of public consent and public support, getting women to smoke cigarettes, getting people to pay immense amount of money for diamond rings. And so here's the reality of the things about diamonds. The public audience watching the TV or movie programming associates diamond rings with marriage and sexual attraction, and like, the woman saying yes in that case of, the movie scene. So then De Beers releases a very small percentage of their inventory of diamonds for sale to the public at very high prices. And then these little rocks, which De Beers may buy for $1 or $5 or 10 cents or whatever from laborers in Africa, etc., they're shipped out, they're cut nicely, and then they're sold for $1,000 or $5,000 in New York or London or wherever people are buying diamonds. So it's a huge profit margin. So for them to spend, a few $100,000 or a few $1 million on a movie, that's nothing compared to the returns that they get with profits from selling diamonds. So that's an example. How is that showing up in other movies and in general in the public, in culture? Well, there's programs about all sorts of things, values. There's just a ton of programming out there. I'm not going to try and assess that, other than to say that everybody should know you need to stay tuned to what is the new in, what's the new fad, and then, stick to that and be shy otherwise. If you think, that new fad thing, it's kind of a bunch of crap. It's kind of like the old star-bellied Sneetches things where, it's one then the other, then they change it back, and then now you have to turn your hat sideways if you want to be cool. Then, you can't do that. You got to let your pants sag if you want to be cool. No, then you got to wear, no, don't wear pants at all. What you want to do is wear a kilt. If you want to be a really cool guy, don't wear pants. Don't wear pants. Wear a kilt. All right. And then it changes back, and like the next year, it's going to be the next season. You need to wear shorts, and then culottes, and then parachute pants. Oh, I loved parachute pants. No, I didn't. Yeah, I did. Okay, maybe I had some, but I didn't love them. I mean, I did. I loved them at the time, and then afterwards, I was like, no, they're not cool. It's kind of like, when I was Barney, the TV show didn't exist when I was like really little, but if it did, I would have loved it, and then I would have said, it's not cool anymore. That's what I'm talking about. That's the same kind of thing. We're told, here's the segments of the population. They need to know what's right for them. They need to be conforming. So it's natural that people would conform. There's nothing wrong with conformity as such. In fact, it's quite healthy. If you don't conform, at least within a certain range, that can be a problem. So, nobody asks about diamond rings. When did they get so popular? Nobody goes to the store, to the jewelry store. They're excited. They're looking for a diamond ring. They're going to buy something. They're planning to maybe get married, right? They don't go and say, hey, salesperson, when did diamond rings get so popular and how? Nobody thinks of that. The programming's been there. Once it's familiar, once it's in the mainstream consciousness, it's done. The job is done. So the investment that De Beers made in 1930 or 1940 or 1950, they're still getting profits from that. So let's see. Regulated mainstream media works, public schools work, churches on the whole work to influence people's values and behaviors and perceptions. So when the public was starting to sell diamonds back into the market, say 20 years after their marriage, so there was this phase where the public, started to just go nuts about buying diamond rings. So they bought a bunch of diamond rings. But then, after a certain amount of time, maybe their people were getting widowed or whatever else. They weren't wearing their rings. Their grandma died. Well, you then pass it on. Like the diamond industry through public relations did everything they could to keep the public from putting their diamond jewelry back into the market. So what did De Beers do? I don't know if Edward Bernays was behind this or not, but De Beers launched a new publicity campaign to shame the masses into keeping their diamond jewelry forever. Never take it out of your shelf. If you don't wear it, that's fine, but don't take it out of your closet. Do not take it to the pawn shop. Do not, because diamonds are forever. So that was the new slogan. It had been Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend. That was a movie. Diamonds Are Forever. That was another movie. And it's been immensely profitable. So we can say, oh, De Beers shouldn't be like that. Diamond rings shouldn't be expensive. That's all completely irrelevant. Functionally, it's other than like for me to identify myself as somebody who has contempt for reality, which I guess is, puts me in a certain segment of people, and everybody can get together and say, yeah, diamonds shouldn't be so expensive. Okay. And what else? Nothing. Nothing else. That's it. All right. So the next two segments are the final one. Yeah, the final ones. The final one will be clarity about shame and clarity about respect. And I may make some comments about confidence. May not. You'll have to watch it to find out.